We are back, as promised, with our guest, the president of the Fraternal Order of Police for the state of Missouri, Officer Jay Schroeder. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
On the brighter side of blue.
Where we don't get political. But we're about to.
But Jay, we getting a raise? Just go.
Trying, babe, trying.
No, one of the reasons that obviously the election just happened, and we didn't do it last week. Emotions were on a little high. Well, we're just going to go over like how elections can affect law enforcement and how they do affect law enforcement. But one of the things that I want to start with is that Jay, to be the president of the FOP and the president of the SLPOA, it takes passion about law enforcement. It really, you have to have a passion for it. And where does Jay get his passion from is his family. It's unbelievable lineage in law enforcement, and I'll brag on your family so you don't have to. But his mother, Kathy Schroeder, she worked under George Peach as an assistant, and then she went over to the U.S. Attorney's office, or U.S. Attorney's building, and worked for Judge Edelman, and for years, 30 years, Jay?
30 years.
30 years, and she was just the sweetest girl, and you understand why when you listen to the rest of the family. So his father, Steve Schroeder, was a Ferguson officer for 20 years, and we played softball with him.
Oh, yeah.
Steve was,
he was a beast.
State champion wrestler. Correct?
Yeah, he was a two-timer undefeated from Rittner.
Rittner.
Yep, Rittner. The Rittner Huskies.
And then he worked at Ferguson, and then his uncle
played for the St. Louis Cardinals, Big Red, in 1974 during the strike here too in the Hall of Fame game.
He was a scab.
He was a scab. Yeah. All right. The thing that's interesting about that is I cannot find one picture from that game because it was a strike year, and they just took pictures of all the players outside Canton. So there's like one field picture. I cannot get anything from.
Wow,
Really?
interesting.
Yeah.
He was a tough dude. He was, obviously you know that. He's a very tough dude. But then some of the other names that everybody will recognize is that Kathy, his mom, is a Dolan. And then they were related to the Billings family.
Yep.
And so Jack Billings was your uncle,
Yep.
or was your mom's uncle, but
Yep.
he was basically your uncle.
Yeah, my great uncle.
Right.
Surrogate
you called
father.
him uncle, and
Yep.
he was around, and we'll hear about that. And then the other one is Brian Dolan, who's a friend of all of ours. The late Brian Dolan was an absolute character that put a smile on everybody's face, and he went through some problems here and there, but God, he was just a wonderful dude to be around.
Oh yeah.
And then what other ones you got? Those are the main ones that I wanted to mention, and then I'm sure you come from more family.
Well, I got my cousin Tim. We've actually had somebody pretty much continuously since 1891. My great-grandfather, Michael Usher, came over from Ireland, joined the police department like all good Irishmen did. They were either policemen or firemen. Us criminals, too, I guess, sometimes. But, maybe a little bit of both. But so then he was on. He died in 1908. He was, and we all thought it was alcohol, but it ended up being he was a painter. That was his secondary job, and he actually died of lead poisoning. So
One of the first,
He came over in 1891?
1891.
Did he come through Ellis Island?
He came through Boston.
You and your Ellis Island.
Well,
So, and then I forgot to mention is Brian and your mother's father was Elmer Dolan.
Yep.
And if you don't know about the Greenlease kidnapping case, you can read up on that. But he was involved in that. And, but again, just a lineage of family that was. It gives you the passion for the job.
Oh yeah. It's been awesome. I thought I was going to be the last one on the line, but looks like my nephew is going to start here in December.
Whose kid is that?
It's actually my sister-in-law's kid.
Okay.
So we'll have a nephew on the police department. So we'll
and
continue
I forgot
on.
one. Your wife.
Oh, my wife. Yeah, my wife.
Jesus.
Whoops.
Yeah,
I'm in trouble. Can we edit? Producer John, please edit. Start over.
Nicole.
You're covered.
Nicole also came from a police family. Her father was a tremendous officer and detective from the Shrum family.
Oh, yeah.
And your wife was nobody to be trifled with in the years.
No,
so
she wasn't. She's still not.
I'm glad I
Yeah.
So that's why producer John's got to fix that little hiccup there.
No, he's got you.
We'll put her first.
Yeah,
you
we'll
just
put her
want to put
first.
her first.
Yeah.
All right, I get it. That's probably
So
a good point.
is your son going to follow suit?
You know what? I don't know. He's mentioned it a couple times, but we'll see. I'd be fine with it.
Would you?
So, yeah.
I'm still having trouble with
Well, you know.
But I'm joking.
You talking about your son?
Yeah.
Who just walked in the basement? But no, so now we'll get to a little of how elections affect law enforcement. You're right in the middle of all that because you're fighting for policemen, the best candidates for the people that you represent. And over the years, just tell us, you know, what you do for officers and what the FOP does for all their members.
Well, basically, we're kind of the advocate. We represent about 8,400 and change policemen around the state of Missouri, and we're just trying to get our word out and try to build momentum back to get police back on the map. And you know, the last decade has been extremely tough. You know, initially, you know, 2014 with the Michael Brown stuff. We took a beating. I mean, we took a decade of beating. It showed in our hiring. I mean, you can't nationally you cannot get policemen hired. I think the next class we graduate is going to have 12 in it. You know, and that's just kind of around the country. So the goal has been trying to build that back with bringing in positive politicians and people that'll go out and support the police. And it's actually started to happen. I mean, this Tuesday election in the state of Missouri was phenomenal for policemen. Everybody was a police supporter from the governor on down. I think we're going to have a great legislative year for policemen because of that. And Governor-elect Kehoe, has made crime, you know, his number one crime and policemen, his number one priority. And we've never really had a governor that's going to come out and say that. He said it in his speech on election night that he wants to make it easier to be a cop in the state of Missouri than a criminal. So when you have somebody that comes out and says that, and he's a state control guy, so I'm always good with that too. So
revolutionary.
Yeah. He's you know that the governor elect is. We were talking a few weeks ago before the election, and he, you know. Governor Parson has been good for police, and you know, but Mike, you know, it's personal to him. His father was a city policeman, and he was raised.
Did he grow up in the city?
Yeah, he grew up, started in Baden, and then went to Walnut Park.
Okay.
When he was raised by policemen, and then you know he started working at Sinclair Ford. So.
Okay.
And
Not as good as Shecker, but we'll be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah. So, but you know, Big Dave Sinclair kind of raised him too, because. And you know that's personal to him, and he looks out. He's looked out for every cop in the state.
So you mentioned the state control. A lot of people hear about it. There's a lot of arguments going on about it. What is it about the state control that would really help the city with everything?
Well, I mean, the first thing is it's going to take the politics out, right? The Board of Aldermen is not going to legislate the police department anymore, and that's the biggest thing. And then it gets down to kind of the minutia of just, you know, getting pay raises and dealing with the little things that, you know, Major, you could talk about on the department too, about getting equipment, making rules and doing all these things, hiring. Like right now with the city, if you want to hire somebody, they have an open hiring list right now. It's been open for basically 7 years. And if somebody fails a PT test, it takes an act of Congress to get them back in, and we're losing recruits to that. They'll just say, like, well, I'll get in shape and I'll go somewhere else because they can't come back to the city. And that's all these rules we have at the city where under our Board of Police Commissioners, you can change all those things.
And I think it's important for the listeners to know is that what would the construction look like if the state if the state control took back over? Who controls the police department, and what does it look like?
Well, that's actually a good point. You know, people talk about it's not a local controlled police department, but it's a department of city residents, city business people, regular city people that are in control of the police department. They have a chief that reports to them once a month, and they have their voices heard. Right now, you don't have that. You get the Board of Aldermen, and they make up these crazy rules and do things, and the police department has to do it. And I think under that system where the governor would appoint, you know, police commissioners, it's the way to go. I think it's a model for police departments.
Well, it worked. It used to work.
It worked.
Producer John's father was a police commissioner, Colonel Frank.
Yeah, they got paid $1,000 a year, which all of them declined, and they just did it because they cared about the city, they cared about the department, and they made their decisions based on that, not for political favor or
No.
try and.
They were stakeholders in the community that made.
Yeah, they were successful people.
Successful stakeholders in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
community
yeah.
that know how to run a business, which the police department, we say it's quasi-military, but it's a business.
Well, yeah,
I mean, you
Big
have to
budgets,
treat- right.
yeah, big decisions with money.
Yeah, that part is the, that is the big part, is them running the business part of the police department. A chief can run the day-to-day operations, but they need somebody to look
That's
over
the key.
that. And
Let
it's-
the policeman
Be policemen.
be, let the chief and his, deputy chiefs run the department, and they take care of all the interference and make sure they have the money and the resources they need to do their job.
And it's funny, you hear the mayor talk about, Kansas City's under board control and their crime rate's out of control and blah, blah, blah. If you look at Kansas City, which is huge, it's 5 counties, 97% of their crime is in Jackson County, where they have a Kim Gardner-type prosecutor. They don't follow the law. Jackson County is a huge county. I mean, they don't even have a jail. So you can't really compare that. If you go into Clay or Cass, any of those other counties, the violent crime's like 3%. You know what I mean? So, and that's 5 other 4 counties that. So I think it works. And
Right. And I think one of the things too is talk about the morale. I mean, you've been there, you've been in the association, you've been talking to these officers, and the morale after. I'm sorry, the morale after the defund the police kicked in.
oh, it's been awful. When all this first initially kicked off, nobody really even knew what we were getting into, right? In 2014, you were just like, well, I'm just going to a protest every day, right? And then it's just years and years of beating down, and every time something happens across the country, right, wrong, or indifferent, it comes back on the policeman. The knucklehead up in Minnesota could have done a bunch of different stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll all agree on that,
Right.
And but why is every other policeman in the country getting punished for that? And I think people saw that, and these young guys are not doing this job. They've taken the joy out of the profession, the honorableness out of the profession, and in the media and some of these politicians that cry that defund or whatever they say now, reimagining police work, and it's hurt. And now, what's happening now, right? You've seen a red wave across the country where people are like, we're going to stand behind law enforcement. We're tired of this, get rid of police stuff. And I think that's going to start to show. I think we're going to start building back to a better.
Jay,
Go ahead.
just one example is one of the first people that.
Go ahead, JJ. I know where you're going.
Is Tom Holloman for the board.
Holman.
Holman.
Home.
I'm not good, but anyway, he is
We know.
a policeman's policeman.
Oh, yeah.
And the morale has gone up. It's shot through the roof now. There were guys talking that they were going to retire, and now they're not.
Yeah.
He's a no-nonsense guy. He's going to do the job like he's supposed to, like should have been done for 4 years, and the morale is incredible. And I think there's a whole new wave coming, and I think this is going to help policemen. It's going to trickle down to local police departments. I hope that's our dream, right? And so just the defund the police stuff, I think that is even the loser in the presidential election, she was talking about, I've seen videos of her talking about defund the police, and now she never really could come back out and say she was for the police, but she wasn't for defunding the police. But she never really came out.
It's hard for them to backtrack. Now they got to
Right.
backtrack, and it's that party has suffered as a result of that. And there are some good people on that side that
Absolutely.
we've worked with for a long time.
There's a lot of people that didn't say defund
Yeah.
the police.
And they're stuck in that.
The thing I'll say is that when you say it, you can't. It's like toothpaste.
Yeah.
You can't put it back in the
No,
jar.
you cannot.
And policemen had, contrary to popular
Put the
belief.
toothpaste back in the drawer. Just
right.
put it back in the drawer.
Did I say drawer?
Yeah.
Supposed to put it in.
I know.
I
I
mean,
said
Tommy, I knew what you meant. I knew what you
In
meant.
the two, but
dude, that's
Hey,
good.
no.
because
What-
if
How
you
small's the drawer?
What's the other one I messed up? Was
Screw
the
you.
that ship is
It's flown.
that ship flown. That ship already flew.
And so, hey, you get me all the time on shit. I'm going to get you.
Yeah,
back.
I agree.
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Did you
I
guys hear?
deserved it.
Did you guys hear Tom Holman wrote a book about getting rid of the illegal aliens? Well, I went to some little bookstore in Webster. I said, "Can I get Tom Holman's book about kicking people out of the country?" And the guy goes, "Get the fuck out of here and don't come back." I said, "Yeah, that's the name of the book."
Well, he had a pretty good exchange, and I saw a clip on it on social media where he's going at it with AOC, and she's talking about illegal immigration, and
Yeah.
she says you're going to separate families, and these people are claiming asylum, and he just said, well, yeah, if they're coming in here illegally and they commit a crime, which is coming in the country illegally, we're going to separate the families. And she says, well, they're seeking asylum. And he says, well, seek it through a port of entry,
Yep.
Right.
and you'll be fine. And
Well, he also said that
Common sense.
when we lock up a father or whatever, we take him to jail. We separate him from the kids then too.
Yeah.
So
Well, what scared me, the phrase you just used, because I haven't heard it. Is this the new thing? They're not going to call it defund the police anymore. They're going to call it reimagine.
oh, yeah, it's reimagined now.
Okay.
Reimagined.
Well,
And
they're not
that's-
going to put that toothpaste back in the drawer either.
no, that boat is flown.
That ain't going back.
That
in.
boat flew too. Yeah.
You'll close the drawer and lock it.
But I mean, I think the important thing too is once this younger generation and you know as older policemen and we're going to have to sell this job to this younger generation. But when these politicians start getting up and saying, "Hey, this is a noble profession," you know,
Yes.
you got these great stories, Timmy Lockneck and all you guys. And I mean, my first, probably got the bug, and I don't know if Tommy you remember, but when my old man was in the hospital. You and Botini were sitting in the emergency room and or the waiting room, and you guys are like, "Hey, just go with me for a ride, right?" So we go out, and Tom and Bo lock up some guy and crack. We're probably in the 2500 block of Sullivan, So maybe I don't know.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's when I got the bug, and I mean, those are the things that we've kind of
we
lost.
still do that stuff all the time. We pick up guys in mobile, grab a young kid. Say, come on.
Well, yeah, Jimmy. I mean,
Totally joke.
But I mean, I grew up around all you guys, right? So I got to see that, and I don't think people are seeing that anymore. And we need to get back to that, and that's what gets these young people.
And I
in.
think that, again, I was going to the leadership portion of it. Nobody wants to work for somebody that has said bad stuff about
Correct.
them or their
Correct.
profession. So it's really hard to, again, to take back those statements you say, because they're out there.
They're out there.
So when people are looking to be a policeman, they're going to do their research too. It's not like, oh, just let me go into this city blind and just hope for the best. They're going to do research and see who else needs policemen, and they're going to pick the best environment to work. And if you've made the statement or you've said stupid shit about the police, and
not
again,
coming.
we're not perfect. We
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
I can say one more thing on that, though.
Go ahead.
If you really want to be the real police,
You come to the
you
city.
come to the city.
Okay.
And I always tell, and I actually talk to the academy class. If you come to our police academy, go and you do a year on, and you decide you want to leave and go to, fence to Speece or Dodge to one of these munis, then you can't say that when you're out and about and someone says, "What do you do for a living?" I'm a cop. Where you work? Well, I used to be in the city, and now I'm in wherever. And I told these recruits, if you do that, you're not allowed to say that. If you're not going to stay in the city,
You banned them from
but
saying
that
stuff?
was like they gives them credibility because they were city policemen, and if they only stay for less than 5 years, they shouldn't be able.
No, you got to
have
get
the
your
right.
you got to get your 40%. You got to get 20. You
What
gotta
was
vest.
absolutely tiresome for me, and I really just couldn't do it anymore, was in the heat of the defund the police era. I was a major, and I'd go to roll calls, and early on I tried to muddle my way through it. Look at a bunch of tired policemen that were unappreciated and just had been beaten down. And I'd have to try to inspire them at roll call to go out there and lock up the bad guy, protect people, and just put their ass on the line. And I couldn't do it convincingly because I knew that if they made the slightest error,
Yep.
even trying to do the right thing, that there was a prosecutor and there was a news media and there was a million people waiting to pounce on them. And I just look at these youngsters going, I couldn't do it with a good heart anymore. And
Is
so,
it-
With that said, the tide has changed in the city. We have a prosecutor that's putting people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Gabe
yeah.
Moore's doing a great
He is
job.
unbelievable.
He's doing a
good
great job.
and then last week is going to help it too.
Yeah.
The
And
elections from last
we
year.
got, and I mean, this is the state of Missouri we live in. I mean, if people don't think the state of Missouri as a whole doesn't support and love policemen, I mean, during the height of all this, we get a law enforcement Bill of Rights passed. It's everybody in the country and all these liberal defund states are losing every right for policemen. And in the state of Missouri, we get a law enforcement Bill of Rights, which was huge legislation. The state FOP had worked on that for 25 years, and we finally got it done. So that's the state we live in.
Real quick, there's a bill out there that not only affects policemen, but it's about Social Security and those who collect pensions from the government. So real quick, tell us about that and how people can help. And like I said, it just doesn't affect policemen.
Yeah, so it's HR 82. It passed the House yesterday for 327 votes, which was huge. That legislation, the national FOP has been working on forever, basically since it started. So now it's moved over to the Senate. And if you go to the Missouri State Facebook page, we were encouraging everyone that's listening, friends, family, whoever, to contact Senator Hawley and Senator Schmidt and ask them to sign on. We're going to be really close in the Senate to getting this thing done. And basically, it's the windfall elimination provision that hurts policemen and public sector employees on their pensions. So you will get, and it's unfair that you don't get the money you put into Social Security. You get, a diluted benefit, but now you'll get your benefit. And for a lot of retired policemen who work secondary and do all these things, that's a big deal, especially with the way healthcare is and everything else. That's a big deal for some of these older retired policemen.
But this is for firemen.
This affects
judges,
tons of people.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't just do that their whole lives.
Yeah.
They work secondary, and they gain points, or they retire after, leave at 41, 42 years old, have 20 years on, and they go get another job. Well, that's money you earned, and just because you get a federal pension doesn't mean you shouldn't get that money. And I think that's a very important bill. And,
They give it to people who don't earn it. They
Right.
might as well give it to the people that do.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jay, keep doing what you're doing. Keep
got
fighting
it.
for the policeman. It's cool to be a policeman. It's an honorable profession, and we need you to keep fighting for us.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Got it.